Hello all. This is Dr. Rakesh Kumar Manne, and the topic of presentation is normal radiographic anatomy of jaws. The question is, why should we know the normal anatomical landmarks? The answer is the radiographic recognition of disease requires a sound knowledge of the radiographic appearances of normal structures, and of course intelligent diagnosis or accurate diagnosis needs an appreciation of the wide range of variations in the normal anatomy. The normal radiographic anatomy of jaws includes radiographic anatomy of teeth and surrounding structures, radiographic anatomy of maxilla, and radiographic anatomy of the mandible. The radiographic anatomy of the teeth and surrounding structures. Within this, the first structure is teeth. Teeth composed primarily of dentin with enamel cap over the coronal portion and thin layer of cementum over the root surface. The enamel cap over the coronal portion is seen with an image with a black arrow. The enamel is 90% mineralized. In fact, the most dense substance in the body that appears completely radio opaque, that is white. The dentin is 75% mineralized, which is less radio opaque or less whiter than enamel, but the density of a dentin is equivalent to the density of bone. That is, the dentin and bone appears similar. Then the cementum is 50% mineralized, and that's usually not appreciated on a radiograph. As seen in an image, the cementum is not well appreciated on a root surface. Why the cementum is not well appreciated? That is because the contrast between the cementum and the dentin is very low and cementum layer is very thin. Coming down to a fourth important structure, that is pulp. Pulp is a soft tissue that appears completely radiolucent, that is completely black. As an age increases, the pulp chamber or the size of a pulp will reduce. The reduction of a pulp chamber, that's because of deposition of secondary dentin. The pulp chamber can also be reduced because of local factors like trauma to the tooth, caries, restorations, attritions, and erosions. Coming down to the supporting structures around the tooth, the tooth is surrounded by a radio-opaque layer of dense bone. We call it as an lamina dura. As seen on an image with a white arrows, this lamina dura, which is surrounding the root surface, is usually in continuation with the crest of an alveolar bone. Usually we don't see lamina dura clinically, the lamina dura is only a radiographic landmark that appears more opaque than the adjacent trabecular bone. That's because of less passage of X-ray beam or more passage of an X-ray beam near the tooth structure. This lamina dura is usually well defined when X-ray beam directs perpendicular to the tooth, and this lamina dura may also appear more diffused when X-ray beam is directed more oblique to the tooth. This lamina dura can be disrupted, the possibility in the break of lamina dura that is seen due to superimposition of cancellous bone or a small nutrient canals passing from the marrow spaces to the periodontal ligament. We see a radiolucent structure between the tooth and the lamina dura. We call it as an periodontal ligament space. The periodontal ligament space is primarily made up of collagen. It's a soft tissue. That's the reason why it appears radiolucent. The width of periodontal ligament space varies from location to location on a root surface. Usually, the periodontal ligament space is very thin at mid portion of a root and wide at the alveolar crest and the root region. The periodontal ligament space will also changes with a masticatory force. If a tooth doesn't have appropriate masticatory forces, the periodontal ligament space is very thin, and if a tooth has more masticatory forces, the periodontal ligament space is wide. The trabecular bone is usually lies between the cortical plates of a jaws. This trabecular bone is usually composed of thin radio-opaque plates and rods. We call them as a trabeculae, and this trabeculae is surrounded by a small radiolucent or black pockets, usually that is bone marrow. This trabeculae got a specific pattern with anatomical locations. We call it as a trabecular pattern. The trabecular pattern in the anterior maxilla is very thin and numerous, as shown in an image on a left hand side top. This forming a fine, granular and dense pattern. The trabecular pattern in the posterior maxilla is similar to the anterior maxilla, although the marrow spaces are large. The trabecular pattern in the anterior mandible, they are very thicker than the maxilla, resulting in very coarse pattern, as shown in an image on left hand side down. The trabecular pattern in the posterior mandible, as shown in an image on a right hand side, usually has large marrow spaces and very sparse trabeculation. These trabeculae, they are arranged horizontal to each other like a ladder, giving a step ladder arrangement. we see some confusing images with a normal radiographic anatomy. Usually we confuse them with dental caries or some periapical diseases. The first confusing image is cervical burnout, that is as we seen on an right hand side top image. The cervical burnout usually we see because of overexposure of lateral portion of a teeth between the enamel and the alveolar crust as shown in an image. So this radiolucency is seen because of overexposure rather than any dental caries. That is a normal anatomical variation. The second confusing image is seen on right hand side top, that is nothing but a developing root which shows a diverging apex as seen with an arrow around the dental papilla, which is enclosed by an radio-opaque bony cleft, that is nothing but a developing tooth. And the third confusing image, which is seen on left hand side, that is double periodontal ligament space. That is, we see two periodontal ligament spaces on a single root surface. That is because of shape of a tooth where two convexities are seen on a single root surface resembling double periodontal ligament space. Coming down to normal radiographic anatomy of maxilla and the mandible will be discussed with subsequent presentations. Thank you. Have a good day.